Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Football Talk, where I go on and discuss about current football matters. And it seemed to go down reasonably well. My latest episode, which was a few weeks ago, about Irish football, it seemed to go down reasonably well, and so I've decided I'm going to continue on, and hopefully these videos can become a bit more frequent than they have been, and this can become maybe a weekly thing, or even twice a week, or three times a week. See, it all depends on kind of the stories I can go on about, or the topics I can talk about. But anyway, again, kind of talking about this episode will be something, again, reasonably close to my heart, being kind of the whole kind of off season for Aston Villa, the Tim Sherwood era, I suppose, really being kind of put into place now. You know, of course, he took over at the end of last year, did well he did well to keep us up, especially after what the place Lambert left us in. But he didn't have any of his own sort of signings, and I was wondering kind of at the end of last year, what sort of guy is he going to go for? Is he going to go for experience? Is he going to go for youth? It seems, to be honest, like when you're looking at it as a Villa fan, you're kind of thinking he's really actually got a reasonably good balance with the signings he's brought in. And I think, you know, we've lost two big players, of course. That's part of being a club that are, like, if you're only finishing 17th in the league, you know, you can't expect your best players not to want to leave. You know, in somebody like Benteke's case, you can't really argue with him wanting to leave to Liverpool. You know, obviously you'd prefer if he didn't, but you can't really argue. And I think, you know, the 32.5 million, I know only around 16 million was up front, the rest over 4 years, but I still think that's reasonably good deal for us. I think he might do quite well at Liverpool, but I don't think there's any guarantees with Benteke, and unfortunately also he's a bit injury prone, and I think there's a lot of risks for that amount of money you're paying, but I do think he is probably capable of being very good at Liverpool, unfortunately. Unfortunately, the other situation was much worse with the whole Fabian Delph, I'm going, no I'm staying, actually I'm stabbing you in the back and going to go. It's just a terrible way to do it. I don't really want to talk about that too much. It kind of pisses me off even thinking about what he did. I have to say I wasn't too concerned when he pulled up with a hamstring injury in his first friendly game for Man City. That's all I'll say. But you look at the rest of the departures, and I've got them on the screen here. To look through them, and you're kind of thinking, well, like, you can't really argue with the rest of them. You know, Darren Bent needed to go for wages, plus he wasn't getting games. Given had to go for wages. He's on far too much for a 37, 38-year-old. And then the rest were just poor players. Matt Loughton disappointed me after having a really good first season. I thought he was a cracking player in his first season. Completely went off the boil. Andy Vyman, never been good enough in my eyes. Good championship player. I think he'll do probably quite well with Derby, but that's his limit. Not a good enough Premier League player. Who else is there? There's Jakubas Silic. Geez, he was a bit of a nightmare for his half season. He was playing games. And the rest really is, I know Ali Sissoko's gone on loan. It doesn't actually come up on this Sky Sports list, but he's gone out on loan to Porto. Again, you can't really argue. And there's been a few of those youth players, Graham Burke and Enda Stevens, being released. But overall, I think that's a reasonably decent window in terms of the outs. You know, obviously you'd like to keep hold of Benteke and Delph, but apart from that, like, we've ended up getting 40 million for the two of them, which isn't too bad. Especially the Benteke's 32 million. Unfortunately, Delph, you know, you would have hoped to have gotten a bit more than 8 million. You would have wanted to get at least 15. I think that's what we would have charged as well. 15 towards 20, really, because I think that's how highly we rated him, kind of if he didn't have that buyout clause. But apart from that, the rest of them, you can't argue with any of them in my eyes. I think none of the rest of them were really going to make a difference in the team. But you go into the guys coming in, and there are 9. There's 10 actually now, because there's only 9 on this list. But I'm recording this on the 14th, Friday the 14th, at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Of which in the morning we've unveiled another signing, our 10th of the window, in Adama Traore from Barcelona for 9 million. For approximately 9 million. I think it's undisclosed officially, but approximately 9 million. And I think he could be a cracking signing. He could be the guy that kind of lifts the team to the next level. He's that sort of a player. You look at those sort of Barcelona guys, even the guys who aren't. You look at even Stoke that have brought in a few of them, like Bojan and Afellay and these guys. They're not obviously the really, really top players, because they don't make it at Barcelona. But there are very good players that just don't make it at Barcelona, because you look at the Barcelona team in comparison to everyone else. I think they're far ahead of almost everybody else in Europe at the moment with their best 11 they can put out. So people are good young guys coming through the system are not going to quite make it. And I think that doesn't take away from him. You look at somebody like Bojan, he's got heaps of ability. He's not the full finished package. He's not the finished article, not the full package either, but he's a very gifted footballer. And I think the same with Afellay. Afellay is a bit more disappointing in my eyes, because he's older than I think everyone, because he looks like he's around 20. I think he's 27, 28, which is a bit disappointing actually. And you look even at Deulofeu, who's gone to Everton. I think Deulofeu could become a really good player. I think that's not a bad piece of business from Everton, which is odd, because I think some of their business over the recent years has been a bit questionable, to say the least. But I think he could be a good signing. And overall, those sort of guys, so they all have a really, if they're even to have been considered around in the Barcelona setup, they must have plenty of ability, and I'm really hoping this Traore guy does too. Also, he's really young. I think he's only 19, maybe 20, but he's so much to grow. We've got him down on a 5-year deal, I think it's a 5-year deal. I couldn't be sure about that, but I think that could be a really, really good signing. As for the rest, the rest is a bit of an odd bunch. As I say, it's quite well mixed, I think, between youth and a bit of experience in there. I think there are guys, unfortunately, that we've brought in that I just don't know really anything about. I haven't seen them actually play football before, on a proper stage. Obviously, I've heard of a few of them through FM, but there's a few guys I just don't know much about. But a few of them that I do know much about, Micah Richards, I think could be an excellent signing, especially on a free transfer. I think that's a really tidy piece of business. Also, I think Micah Richards is really crying out for what Villa are giving him, which is that kind of seniority at the back, letting him play centre-back rather than right-back. He is a centre-back. He's a converted right-back. Or I think he's much better in the centre. But he's a leader, and we're giving him kind of that responsibility. We've made him kind of captain. He's not club captain, but he's kind of captain on the pitch. And I think that could really suit him. I think he could turn out to be really good, especially for a free transfer. There's no risk. I suspect he's on a fairly high wage. I think the reports were he was on a high wage. But if you're picking him up for free, with absolutely no transfer spent on it, you can, I think, afford to give him a bit more wage. And I think he could be really, really handy signing. In terms of some of the others, you got somebody like Scott Sinclair, looked lively in his loan spell at the end of last year. I think Scott Sinclair could become a bit better again, a bit like Richards, with just sheer amount of games again. I think he's going to be rusty still from that almost kind of 2.5 years of without playing professional football. Well, not professional football, you know what I mean, not Premier League football, playing reserve team all the time. So I think he could grow back into something, but obviously I don't know. There must be a few doubts about him. But again, I think he was only brought in for around 2.5 million. So again, a pretty handy, like in terms of not much transfer budget, not much of finance kind of spent on him. I think that could be another handy signing. Really, like somebody like Mark Bunn, I think is just blatantly a backup player to Guzan. Obviously, it was disappointing because we were linked heavily with Begovic at one stage, and he has decided to ruin his career by going to Chelsea and sitting on the bench. But I think Bunn is really being solely brought in as a backup to Guzan. I can't see any other reason for him other than that we knew we were getting rid of Given and we needed a second goalkeeper. And I think that it's going to be similar enough with Jose Angel Crespo, the guy from Cordoba who brought in for around $500,000. He seems to be kind of this auxiliary player who can almost play in every single position on the park. Both he can play right back, left back, right wing, I think as well. I think he's just being brought in as really a guy who can kind of fill the spots as a rotation option and a really handy, versatile player. And then I think that's all the kind of fringe players I think that have been brought in, because the rest have been brought in for kind of high amounts of money, and I think there's a few of them that I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing how they kind of unfold. The two biggest probably being not Jordan Ayew actually, although he could be one as well. There's probably three of them then, because Jordan Ayew, Jordan Amavi, and Idrissa Gueye, I think, are Gueye, I don't know how you pronounce his second name. But I think they're all three can be really potentially very good players. As I said before, I don't necessarily know they will be. I'm basing it kind of on records, on kind of sometimes with international caps even, or youth appearances for international teams showing that they're of some level of quality. But especially in the first game of the season, I was really impressed with Idrissa Gueye and Amavi at left back. Amavi looked a really tidy left back, because it's a bit of a niche position. There's not many very good left backs going around in the world, and he seemed to be kind of came in. He's a 21-year-old, I think it's 21-year-old, no fear, kind of buzzes down the wing, but is fairly solid defensively. And Idrissa Gueye seems to be kind of a no-nonsense box-to-box midfielder, which is what we've been kind of crying out for. And Delph did do it, to be fair. Last year he was becoming that dominant box-to-box midfielder, but he should have been that a few years ago, and I never thought he really fulfilled what he should have been at Villa. But he's gone now, so there's not much more you can talk about Delph for. But I think Gueye could be potentially a really good replacement, if not a better replacement than Delph himself. And Jordan, then there's only two left after that. Jordan Vertout, or from FC Nantes. We've spent an awful lot of money on this guy. We've spent $8 million on this guy, and I'm really not sure. He'd be the one I'd be, I suppose, concerned the most about. The way sometimes you just have little inklings. I do admire though the fact that all Ayew, Amavi, and Gueye are all kind of physically well able. They're big guys, they're strong, fast guys, and I always think that gives them a step up. On sometimes you get in this kind of small nippy guy, and it takes an awful lot of time for those sort of players to adjust to going into the Premier League unless they're like fantastic. And I'm not sure whether this Vertout guy is. Another really young guy though, so you gotta, I suppose, give him time. But I suppose he's the one I'd be concerned the most, because the last signing is another physically well-able guy, and that is Rudy Gestede from Blackburn. Now, I have seen Rudy Gestede in action, and I think this could be a really, really good piece of business. It went down as an undisclosed fee, but reports are kind of telling that it was around $6 million, which I was very surprised by, because I thought I saw somewhere in January, Blackburn were rejecting kind of 9 million bids for Gestede from Premier League clubs, but to suddenly accept a 6 million bid from Villa. And I think really this has been the move Gestede has been crying out for the last few years at Blackburn. He's wanted to make that move into the Premier League, but I think he's also wanted to make that move, to be fair to him, to a club that's actually going to play him. not make that really kind of big move, but instead to just get into the Premier League, into a team like Villa or something, really make an impact, and then you can propel your career, or you can propel Villa so you don't even have to go elsewhere. But of course, scoring on his debut is always going to help in terms of positivity from supporters. He's a threat. He's a bit like Marouane Fellaini. When Fellaini's used really well, like back in his Everton days, or even sometimes last year, he's a hassle. These are huge guys, big bushes of hair as well, but they're winning headers, they're throwing themselves at balls, and overall they're just really, I suspect, a pain in the arse for defenders to mark these guys, to control these guys. And as shown with Gusted's header against Bournemouth, Bournemouth just didn't pick him up, and Gusted rose around 3 feet higher than everybody else. And to be honest, the second person in the air, him and Richards almost clashed, because both of them have terrific jumping reach. Richards in particular, because he's not actually that big a guy to start off with. But I suspect if Gusted had missed the ball, Richards was heading it in as well, because those two guys both went after it, which is great to see, because it's not been something we've really been used to in the past, apart from Benteke. Benteke has always been rising at corners or something, but none of the defenders almost ever score. Like Ron Vlaar barely ever scored, Clark doesn't really score, Corey, Baker, they're never on the score sheet. But I really feel somebody like Richards, not only could he be a fantastic defender, but he could help with those kind of crunch goals at crucial times. Now, when that's my kind of sum up, I suppose overall consensus is I'm actually quite excited about the season ahead. Of course, we're playing Man U tonight, which I suspect if this video doesn't go up today and we get absolutely tonked by Man U, I'll look like a bit of an idiot. But I'm just saying now, this is being recorded before the Man U game. So obviously, we've really a rubbish record against Man U in home and away. If we could pinch a draw, I'd be ecstatic. I don't think we'll win the game. We've kind of got a hoodoo almost against Man U about not winning games against them. But I think if we could put a draw or even a respectable defeat, like if we scored a goal in defeat, like we lost 2-1 or something, I'd be actually reasonably pleased. I'm just looking for us to kind of show a bit of enthusiasm, a bit of kind of fight going forward. And I think if you have all these new guys plus still working, somebody like Grealish I think is out injured at the moment, but if he can come back in and not really get succumbed into any sort of second season syndrome, he could be equally as fantastic, hopefully, because I think he's a really, really handy player. But with that is my consensus over the Villa's kind of off-season. I think it's positive. I think Sherwood's brought in the right sort of personnel. Obviously, with some of them, I really don't know whether they can really fulfill and sustain kind of very good performances in the Premier League. But early signs do look good, and I'm overall quite positive for the season ahead. So anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, if you have something that you'd really like me to talk about, do suggest it in the comments and I'll certainly take it on board and I'll probably make a video about it. So yeah, that's another thing for you. If you want me to review your club's off season or just a topic of football in general, please do fire ahead. Don't be afraid to do so. Anyway, as I said, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, do give it a like, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.